Rev up your engines!
Well, you want a bit of dark humor? You remember Stellantis laid off 400 of their white-collar jobs, engineers and stuff in the United States, right? Here's how they did it. They are such scumbags. They told all these workers, today is a mandatory remote work day. Then they emailed them and told them they were all fired. Yeah, talk about dark humor. Okay, today you guys have to work at home, mandatory. You're fired, don't bother coming back. I guess they didn't trust it and thought they were going to destroy the factory, steal everything on their last day, right? So they told them they were fired when they were at home using a mandatory work day. So if any of you are working for some company and they say, today is a mandatory work day at home, maybe you should go to work and see what's happening, you know? Given an email that said, Stellantis is holding important operational meetings that require specific attention and participation. To ensure everybody can participate, we give a mandatory remote workday. And then they sent them emails telling them they were fired. Man, what a bunch of European scumbags those guys are. I told you they were going to fire people because it's a European company, Stellantis. When they bought Chrysler, Dodge, all that stuff, right, you know they're just going to start firing Americans. They have. And they don't even have the brass balls of showing the people in their face, oh, take a mandatory work day because we're working on something at the office that's important. And that was, we're firing all of you. Goodbye. Nice company, Stellantis. Well, I'm not buying any of their products. And if you don't like these scumbags, don't buy any of their products either. I always love the horse manure that comes out of the car manufacturers. Once one jumps in, they're all on the bandwagon. Now they're on the bandwagon of, we're going to make an electric car for less than $25,000, blah, 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 blah. So what does Nissan say? We are addressing our extreme market volatility with 30 new models and big cost cutting on the electric vehicle range. Nissan says we are targeting an additional 1 million vehicle sales by the end of fiscal year 2026. They can target all they want, you know? They make crappy vehicles, Nissan. Anybody who knows anything about cars knows they make crap these days, right? And yet, oh, well, we're going to all of a sudden make the electric vehicles cheaper. We'll have different range of them, blah, 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 blah. The horse manure comes flying out. Soon as one says it, all the others. Now it's the magic $25,000, right? The Chinese are making them for less than 10 grand. They're a battery and a motor. You can make those things cheap like the Chinese do. It's probably not that hard to do. But of course, car manufacturers have been greedy. They always want to sell the most expensive ones they can with all the options because they make more profit. They do not want to make cheap cars. That's not their thing. And they talk that, oh, we're going to make this, and they act like 25 grand is cheap for an electric car. Heck, the Chinese are making them for less than 10. They can never compete with that. Nissan can't even make cars that last at the price they're selling them. If they get them even cheaper, do you really think they're going to be better? There's a no-brainer. You know they're going to be even worse than what they're making today. Lorenzo Rock says, how often do I change the belts? Scotty, I got a 2015 Kia Soul, has 125,000 miles. How often should I change the timing belt? My grandfather says every 70,000 miles. What should I do? Okay, well, I'm assuming you're in the United States. All the 2015 Kia Souls sold in the United States have timing changed. Just leave it alone. They're made out of metal. They're lubricated by the engine oil that they're soaked into. They should last. It is a Kia, and they do make them crappy, but they should last basically as long as the engine does. Now, if your timing chain is worn, you'll hear it. It'll be clacking, especially at idle speed. You'll hear clack, clack. When you rev it up, the noise will kind of go away, but it'll clack when you're idling because the chain's flopping around inside, right? It should have a timing chain, and then you don't have to do anything to it at all. If it has a timing belt, you change them every 100,000 miles. In the United States, every Kia Soul I ever saw has a timing chain in 2015. So have yours checked. Get the VIN number. All you need is the VIN number. Get the VIN number. Call up a Kia dealer parts department and say, how much is the timing chain for my car? They'll look it up, and they'll say, your timing chain costs this, or they'll say, oh, you have a timing belt. But all the ones I've ever seen had timing chains. You don't have to worry about it if you change your oil regularly. Iggy1969 says, I have a misfire and stumble on a cold start. 07 Lexus ES350, 370,000 kilometers. When I started, it stumbles and lasts until it reaches operating temperature. Once warm, the stumble goes away. There are no codes. Is it the coolant temperature sensor? It could be all kinds of things, but that's very easy for a good mechanic to check. We plug in our fancy scan tool. We can go right to the coolant temperature sensor data and we can watch it. And if it says it's already warm when it isn't, or it says that it's cold when it should be warm, the sensor's bad. And they do go bad. I changed one on my wife's Lexus ES300 last year. They're so easy to change. You can even go to AutoZone and buy that sensor, screw it out, screw it in. If it fixes it, great. And you don't have to deal with anything. Try that first, really. It would be the most logical thing to do. Then if not, go to a mechanic. And there are literally scores of things that can cause a car to stumble when it's cold. And you'd have to go through them all. Of course, you can check the air filter, the spark plugs, see if you got a vacuum leak or a rubber hose came off, because it's a 17-year-old car. Rubber can be rotten and things can come off. Now, a lot of times I don't really agree with all these things that people say, but at least for once they did something correct. Because number 5 on the list of least reliable is Jeep. Well, I agree there. It's definitely among the 5 worst. Number 4 on the list is Range Rover. Well, that doesn't surprise me either, right? Number 3 is Rivian, the electric car company. I mean, how those companies even stay afloat is beyond me. They just take government money and they're making crap. They screw over their investors. And I doubt if that company's going to be around for all that much longer, right? Now, number 2 is another one that's a no-brainer, Mercedes-Benz. Their predicted reliability score out of 100 was 23. Now, woo-wee, boy, that's pretty bad, right? But to round out the list, Chrysler was number 1 with the predicted reliability score of 18 out of 100. But those are really 5 bad car companies that I would tell you not to buy vehicles from. For once, I agree with this Consumer Reports. Somebody there must know a little bit about cars now. You know, some of these companies, they rated Chrysler's number 1 as the best for some of the stuff. You know, when you see stuff like that there's money changing hands to say that Chrysler makes a good one. In this case, they picked Chrysler as number 1 in the worst reliable cars out there that are being built today. Here's an article by a man in this electric car website that they're talking about. The guy's name is Jameson Dow. And the title of this thing just makes me laugh. Big Auto is begging governments to let them go bankrupt as Chinese EVs loom. Right? His whole premise of this article is now they're starting to lighten up on the EPA, got a bit better gas mileage to force people to buy EV cars. They're lightening up on it because there's a real world out there, people, and Congress is finding out nobody's buying these electric cars, right? We can tell them they have to, but if nobody wants to buy them, what are we going to do? And the car manufacturers, they're stuck in the middle. They're like, okay, we started making these things, but nobody's buying them. So how can you possibly force us to only sell that? We'll go out of business, right? Well, this lunatic, Jameson Dow, says Big Auto's begging governments to let them go bankrupt. He says, well, the Chinese will make cheap ones. The future is electric cars. They take this image that electric cars is only possible thing, battery electric cars, right? I mean, listen to what the guy says. The auto industry is electrifying, and all new cars will be electric in the relatively near future. This is not in dispute by any serious person. They all hang out together. They have their little pat each other on the back clubs where, you know, they're having glasses of wine and, you know, living in woke culture land. Hey, buddy, in the real world, nobody wants electric cars. I don't have a single customer that I've asked in the last 2 years that said they were going to buy an electric car as their next car. They see the headaches of it. They see the problems. They see the expense, right? And then clowns like this. Of course, he does write for Electric, which is an online website, right? So, of course, he's going to be pushing electric cars. That's how he makes his living, right? Ask Elon Musk. Of course, he's going to tell you all kinds of stuff. He also told you that all of his cars are going to be worth $100,000 because you can rent them out, and they'll be worth more money. You can rent them out on Turo and Uber or whatever, and have your car make money. Even ideas that you can have them mine bitcoins while they're just sitting there with their computers, right? And all of this came not to be true at all, right? So these lunatics that are saying things like, all new cars will be electric in the near future. This is not in dispute by any serious person. If someone disagrees with him, well, he's not a serious person. Well, here's some seriousness, buddy. Nobody wants to buy those freaking things. And now guys like you are just pushing them, pushing them, pushing them, pushing them. And they act like it's going to save the planet. It is not going to save the planet. Pollution comes from many, many sources. And cars is actually not that large amount. Go to the big factories, the big corporations, all these industries. And they don't ever talk about that. They've got people paying guys in Washington, right? Where the average person doesn't, so they're trying to force us to pay for something that actually does a very small amount of change. When you studied what electrifying cars does, all the extra pollution it does building them and then generating the electricity, it doesn't make that much difference. It's not going to save the planet. If you was talking about serious people, talk to some serious scientists. And I've read with serious scientists, and they all said, it's too late for electric cars to save the planet. You got to do something else, right? Yet these people, they're in their ivory tower. Electric cars are going to save us all. Stop trying to put your propaganda in people's faces saying that it's reality. The reality is people don't want to buy these stupid cars. They don't fit Americans' lifestyle. There's no infrastructure for the extra electrical usage that we use. All kinds of problems, right? And then these clowns come out, everybody knows that's it. No, it isn't it. And you don't know what technology is coming out in the future either. That'll probably be 10 times better than the battery electric crap that they're making today. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.